Alright guys, and welcome back to this Python tutorials. In this tutorial I'm going to teach you about Python user input and everything you need to know about user input, how to work with the input function, how to use the input function to manipulate data from the user. And so you open your PyDroid, which I have. Click on the file icon, then open new file. So the input function is a Python built-in function that is used to work on user input to accept data from the user. So here we go. This is how it looks like. This is the input function I'm talking about. So how do we use this? Let's define a variable. I'll call it name. I'll call it name because in this variable I'm going to send a kind of greeting message to the user. Whatever the user gives to me as his or her name, I'm going to send a kind of greeting message to the user. Inside the input function, you define what you need from the user. Like here, I'm going to ask the user of his or her name. So I will say, what is your name? What is your name? Then you close the parentheses. Then I'll come down and print hello because I'm going to send a kind of hello to the user. Here I'm going to use the fstring method to concatenate the strings. Then user, inside the curly bracket, you call the function that you've already created. Then inside this curly bracket now I'll call the function, the name of my variable rather, I'll call my variable. I'll say good morning. Good morning. Something like this. If you run a program, you see it appears here. And one thing with the input function, whenever you use the input function, because it is used to get an information or a data from the user, when you run your program, it will automatically invoke the keyboard in order to enable the user to input data. So that's the work of the input function. So here you can use anything. My name is Paul, and let me use Paul. You can see it here. Hello Paul, good morning. So this is basically how to use the input function to accept data from the user. So I believe by now you understand the basis of this input function. So let's move on to a more precise code and program, so you get to understand better in our course of study. So we'll go. I'm going to do more thing. I'll use the dot format method to do the same thing which I have done here. I'm going to ask of the user of his or her name, and then ask of his or her date of birth. Then I'll use the dot format method to concatenate and return to the user. Define the age variable. Age equals input. Anytime you want to accept data from the user, use the input function. Do not forget. So input, you say, what is your age? Let me bring this down. I'm not going to use the fstring method here again. I'm going to use the dot format method. Pass an empty string inside the curly bracket. That's how to use the dot format method, which I have taught us in the previous tutorials. Hello user, then you are, I'll remove this one, remove this good morning first. You are, then passing another empty curly bracket, pass an empty string inside the curly bracket as well for age. This particular one is for age, while the first one, this one is for name. And you are age years old. Then inside the format function, you now call the variables that you created, name, then age. I run my program again. What's the name? I write my name, then age, use any age. You now say hello Paul, you are 12 years old. Then you say now that's how it works. So this is how to use the input function basically, and how to concatenate as well. I have taught us concatenation in previous tutorials, and so this is how it works. You can use any name. Let me use another one, Julie. Then age 23. You say hello Julie, you are 23 years old. Let's move on. let's do a more simpler project that we'll be able to calculate age from date of birth. Let's do something like this. I'll create another variable, call it, you can call it anything, you can name your variable anything, do not forget that. Let me call this date then underscore of underscore birth equals input as usual. And I will now ask my user for year of birth. You say enter your year of birth, enter your year of birth. You can use anything, enter your year of birth. Then here we'll come down and print. If the user enters his or her year of birth, then we are going to return this message to the user. And remember, I'll use the int this thing now. Let me convert this whole thing to integer, because automatically without this int method, this int, what we have here is a string which we cannot concatenate it with an integer, and so we use the int to convert everything here to integer, because what we need from the user is actually an integer. And so let me make another, before the print I will define another variable called add. So inside the add variable I will do my calculation and then store those calculations inside my add variable. So we are in the year 2022. I'll use 2022, then minus the age, the year of birth, which I have defined, the variable, the year of birth variable. So now date of birth. Come down and print you are plus, using the addition operator method for concatenation, plus add, because we have stored everything inside the add variable, then plus years old. So if we run a program now, you will see enter your year of birth. Let me use 2000 for instance. Okay, what happened? It's a type error, can only concatenate string, not integer. That's what I was avoiding here. So okay, we'll convert this add variable to string. We use str here. Use str, converting it to string, so avoid that error. I use 2000. See now you are 22 years old. So that's how it works. This is basically how to determine the age of the user from the year of birth, from the birth year. So if I use 1999, you can see you are 23 years old. So this is basically how it works. You can use the new tab, the backward slash, then new tab, the backward slash, then n, backward slash n. This backward slash n will bring a new tab, separate the word from this our input method, input statements. If I use 2000, let me do it so that you understand what you can see. The space now, you are 22 years old, and the space between these two, enter your year of birth, and you are 22 years old. So that's the work of that backward slash n. It means new tab. So this is basically how to accept input from the user and how to use the input function. So let's move on. We'll do two more simple projects before we'll call this section to an end. We're going to do the first project that will be able to calculate the number of words that the user input, the number of words that the user enter. We have been taught about the len function, how to determine the length of strings, and also the split function, how to determine the number of words using the split function. We are going to use it here. Text, you can name it anything, call it text. Then because I'm going to accept an input from the user, I'll use the input function. Then inside the input function, you now define what you need from your user. I'll say impute any sentence or text, impute any sentence or text. Then I'll now come down and print. I'll use the fstring method. You entered, and I'll use inside the curly brackets, because I'm using the fstring method, to concatenate this string, the length function, and inside the length function you call the variable, then the variable name and the dot split, because we want to determine the number of words that our user enters, and the number of words. If we run our program, okay, we're having some indentation error here, indentation error. So okay, from our text here we're having indentation error, so let's fix that. Okay, alright, let's run our program again. It says impute any sentence or text. Let me use any word. Let's say I am going. If you press enter, it says you entered 3 words. Do you see now? So that's let me use the new tab to separate this word. Alright, okay, enter any words. Let me say hello guys, you are welcome. Hello guys, you are welcome. Then press enter. I say you entered 5 words. So this program automatically determine or calculate the number of words entered by the user. So this is how it works basically. So you can use this program to determine if it is in an examination that you want the student to write a specific or a number of words. You can use this program to detect the number of words written entered by the students. So here we go. Let's proceed to the next project, the last project before we call this section to an end. In this other project, we are going to do a very simple login system where we will ask of the user's name and then the password. Then the second one will verify the first password with the second. Then if they are the same, we'll now send a message to the. If they are not the same, we'll send an error message to the user. If they are the same, then we'll proceed. We'll send a successful message to the user. We'll define another variable called name, then input. By now we should be used to this input function now. Input. I'm going to ask of the user the username. Let me just use username. Okay, all right, username. Then pass1. Let me just use the short form of password. Pass1 input password. Then pass2, the second password. Now we have gotten the second password. Then input verify password. Let me use verify here. Verify password. So here we go. Now we'll use conditional statements to do this. We'll use conditions using the if and else statement, conditional statement, to determine these two conditions, to give these two conditions, so that if the passwords are the same, then we'll return a successful message to the user. If the passwords are not the same, we'll return an error message to the user. How do we do that? We use the if statement. This is a conditional statement. If you don't know about this conditional statement for now, do not worry. In the next tutorial, we will talk about that with the conditional statement. So here we go. We say if pass1, we'll give a condition. If pass1 it's equal to, if pass1 is equal to pass2, then print login successfully. What if the passwords are not the same? And then second condition should be given now. If the passwords are not the same, they will now print passwords not the same. Password not the same. Then we'll now tell the user to enter the same password, to use the same password in all conditions, in all cases. Use the same password. Please use the same password. Alright, so if this first condition is not fulfilled, that if the password are the same, then we'll return this successful message to the user. But if not, If the first condition is not met, if passwords are not the same, then we will skip this first condition and then execute the second condition given here, the else condition. So here we go, enter username, let me use any username, Paul, then enter password, let me use any password, 123, verify password, 123. If we print, you say login successfully. What if the passwords are not the same? Let me use different password now so that you see how it works. 123 and 243, they are not the same. You see now, please, it's a password not the same, please use the same password. So you now see how it works, how to use the conditional statement to work on user input. So if the first password is not the same with the second, it will return that error message. That's how it works. Let me use another thing. 1 2 3 4 and 1 2 3 5. They are not the same. Let's return. It say please, password not the same, please use the same password. But if they are the same, it will return the successful message. It's a login successfully. That's basically how it works. So do well to like my videos and subscribe to my channel, and look forward for more videos. Thanks, and see you in the next tutorials.